There we go. All right. Good morning, everyone. So wonderful to see all of these beautiful faces joining us today. On behalf of the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization, welcome to our first grant writing workshop. I'm Dion Ferguson, and I'm the president of the board. Also joining us today are Eugenia Davis. She is the vice president. Eugenia, can you give a shout out and say hello or wave your hand or something? I know I saw her name.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. All right. Thank you, Miss Eugenia. All right, Miss Eugenia's in the house.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Good morning, Miss Eugenia.
Good morning.
And we also have Tracy Beavers, who is the treasurer of the board. Tracy, you want to give a shout out, say hello to everyone?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. And finally, we have Linda H., who is the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization consultant, who we don't know how we would operate or exist without her. So that is Miss Linda H. And when you call the office or you send an email, that is who you are communicating with. So Linda, will you give a shout out?
Of course I will. Good morning and thank you. Welcome everyone.
All right. So welcome again, and we are so glad that you're able to join us today. Here is how we'll, let me see. There we go. Here is how we'll spend our day today, our time together today. First, the welcome and the overview of the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization, and a brief review of what is included and what we're asking for with the application. And that is what I will go over with you with. And then Monique and her team with Mosaic Beginnings will then dive into the grant writing and capacity building skills. She'll offer you some resources and how to use those resources. And finally, we'll have some questions and a survey for you to complete. And that will be our time together. And may I ask people to go on mute, please, if you can, because we're getting some feedback. All right. So the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization began in 1984. It was as a result of a lawsuit by the city of St. Louis against the cable companies. And currently, the organization, the philanthropic organization, is governed by a board of directors who are comprised of community volunteers. And so we are volunteering our time. And also we are a group of people who are very committed to community and building community in our own work and own lives. So that's who we are. So as volunteers, we collectively review and make the grant funding decisions. After going through a strategic planning process several years ago, the board decided to include capacity building as a part of the work that the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization does. We felt it was important, not simply so that we were helping organizations to be able to present good proposals to the philanthropic organization, but we really wanted to help organizations to build their capacity to be able to get funding from other sources as well, and to be able to evaluate their programs effectively, to be able to present budgets that when organizations who were providing grant funds to you looked at those budgets, they understood exactly what was happening with your organization. So we really keyed in on being able to help you with capacity building. And so that's where that came from, and that's why we are here now, several years later. And as you see, that is our mission. The St. Louis Philanthropic Organization Incorporated provides funding and capacity building to nonprofit organizations whose programs and services advance the quality of life for St. Louis City residents. And the principles we use to guide our work as the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization Board, and also principles that we look for in the work of our grantees, are impact-focused, community-oriented, commitment, accountability, equity, and respect. Your proposals for the 2021 responsive grants can be up to $10,000 maximum. They should be programs and services that support St. Louis City residents and programs and services that promote equity. And when we talk about equity, we're more specifically speaking of racial equity. Here are the elements of the proposal that we expect to receive. There are 12 pieces. Cover page with the organization information, your statement of need, why is your program necessary? Program objectives, what are you going to accomplish with the program? Program implementation, how are you going to get it done? Method of evaluation, procedures to limit use of grant funds to St. Louis City residents, your budget for your organization, your past year's budget as well as your current year's budget, the budget for the program, who your board of directors are, a list of your board of directors, the signature, original signature of the authorized official within your organization. We'd also like to know how you learned about the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization Responsive Grant. And then there are several attachments that are needed: your 501c3 determination letter, certificate of incorporation, certificate of good standing, which needs to be dated after January 5th, and an endorsement statement by your board, which states that the funds will not be used to support terrorism, as well as the statement needs to say that your board supports this program or project that you are seeking funding for. So here are some criteria that's used. Your proposal must align with our mission. It has to serve the targeted population, City of St. Louis residents, and it cannot, your ask cannot be over $10,000. The application needs to be complete, so it has to have those 12 elements on the last slide. And we are asking for 1 original signed copy and 2 copies to go along with that. And please remember all of the attachments. For organizations who have received responsive grants in the past, that is what we mean by we're talking to those organizations when we ask them to be in good standing with the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization. Good standing means that you have submitted all program and financial reports, and you have used the money with the intent that was set out. If your agency received or organization received grant funding from the philanthropic organization in 2019 and 2020, then you are not eligible to submit to receive funding in 2021. You will need to wait a year. And finally, again, we're looking for your proposal, your project, your program to promote equity. So with your applications, we are asking for you to submit them. They need to be submitted by February 5th, 2021 by 4:30 p.m. The applications can be mailed, but the February 5th date is not a postmark by date. The applications must be in our office, in our hands by 4:30 p.m. February 5th. The board of the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization will do our review of all of the grants received and make our decisions by late April 2021. Following that, the grantees will receive their checks after they have submitted a signed grant acceptance letter that Linda will send to you. Just so that you know what our hours are, Mondays and Thursdays, 8:30 to 4:30, and Fridays from 8:30 to 12. Please, please, please contact our office with questions as you move through your grant writing process. We are very open to hearing from you and helping you to answer any questions that you may have. While we cannot do a pre-review of your proposal, we will do our best to answer any questions to help you along in your process. Here is our address. That is where you will need to either deliver by hand or mail your proposals. Our phone number is there and our email address is there as well, so that you're able to contact us again with your questions. And well, I think that is it for me, except that we are very excited to be partnering with Mosaic Beginnings to offer a series of 3 workshops. This is the first of 3 workshops that we'll be offering. Thank you to Monique and her team at Mosaic, and thanks for the role that you've played in making this happen, Monique and team. Thanks to all of you for joining us today, for taking time out of your day to join us, the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization, in our grant writing workshop. We would like for you all to feel free to use the chat throughout to ask any questions that you may have. The board members and Linda are on here so that we can help answer any of those questions via the chat. If you are willing, I'd also like to ask you at this time in the chat just to let us know what organization you're representing. All right, and Ms. Monique, let's get started.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful information. And thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Before I get started with my component, I did see one question in the chat that came through, and they were asking if there are any organizational budget limits.
I was actually typing in response to that. There has not been any organizational budget limits, but there is a maximum, as Dion said, about the grant request of $10,000, but not a limit on the budget.
Thank you, Linda. All right. Well, again, thank you so much to the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization for allowing Mosaic Beginnings to serve in this capacity. We're truly honored. And I'm really excited about all 3 of these different workshops that we'll be leading. I do have 2 team members on here that I'm forever grateful for, and that's Debbie Bryant and Mary Fortenberry. They don't have their screens on, but they're here to provide any technical assistance. They're going to do their best to manage the chat, as well as if anyone raises their hand, then they'll try to make sure that we call on everyone. Of course, we know there are a lot of people in here, so if we don't get to a question for some reason, we will go back through the chat and make sure that we answer questions afterwards. We'll share that information with Linda, because I know she'll be emailing those who have been participating in this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead with the presentation. Let's see, let me make sure. All right. Pulling it up. Here we go. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us. And as was shared, like, if you got questions, ask them at any point in time. We, as Mosaic Beginnings, serve nonprofits, faith-based, and civic organizations. And this is just a quick overview. We won't go through this, but we provide a variety of services to these organizations, and we call them capacity building services. It's our goal to make sure that every organization we have the opportunity to work with is left, better than they were when we came. And so our goal is to continue to serve our community in any way that is necessary. I just wanted to go through a few house rules before we get started. I do ask that if you're able to please have your cameras on. We want to make sure this is feeling as much like we're in person as possible and as much like we have a community as we can in the midst of a pandemic. I definitely ask you to use your raise your hand feature. That can be found on the bottom of the screen. I'm sorry, yeah, it should be on the bottom of the screen. You can raise your hand, you can clap, you can do all those things. If you raise your hand, we're gonna try our best to make sure that we call on you. Ask questions, even if we're in the midst of talking about something, please feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat and we will answer those questions, because we want to make sure that we aren't having you wait till the end or possibly miss something or misunderstand something. I do ask that you will remain muted unless you have raised your hand, and then at that time you'll be called upon and you can unmute. That just keeps, since there are so many people on here, just kind of keeps things running smoothly. And next, okay, let me go to the next slide. All right, plan for the day. So we've already gone through the welcome and introductions and gone over the application. The way that we're going to go through this is we're going to go through the proposal summary, just kind of the sections that are required, and we're going to break down the proposal as well. I do want to share that while we are covering the responsive grants sections, we are making sure that we have broadened our response so that even if you're not applying for this proposal, we're making sure that you understand what funders are looking for in general, because these sections align with what most funders are requesting. Then we will do some breakout sessions. If you registered by yesterday, maybe midday to early evening, you have been pre-assigned to breakout rooms. If there are people who have registered maybe later and then this morning, we'll just have to add you to breakout rooms when we get to the teamwork makes the dream work portion. And that's where you'll be able to kind of apply what you've learned. Just see if you have any questions once you do that. We also have a password protected site that we have developed. We'll show you that, just kind of briefly walk through it, and that information will be shared with you afterwards. As Dion mentioned, we do have a survey, so we'll put that in the comment section at that point in time, but we also will, I think Linda's going to be sending that out in the email after this as well. So here's the proposal summary. These are the sections of the proposal, and we will cover all of these in our presentation today. So let's go ahead and break down the proposal if there's no questions as of yet. I'm just going to check the chat real quick, make sure no one has any questions. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so breaking down the proposal. Okay, there we go. Statement of need. So I really wanted to call out the statement of need because this is something that is essential, and oftentimes people aren't really familiar with what is required so that we have a full quality statement of need and have an understanding of why your community is most in need of these services and this funding. Again, if you have any questions along the way, as Dion has shared, please feel free to reach out to Linda and she will be able to answer questions. I do want to say one thing that I didn't mention, and that's that the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization has been very clear that they understand the impact of the pandemic on organizations and the ability, how that impacts your ability to do services maybe as you generally would. So it's important to be clear on how your program has shifted and include that information in your proposal. Let them know how it shifted, what do things look like now. And also there was something that they shared, and they're such a wonderful organization. They shared that it's not uncommon for your organization to begin program implementation and then identify that maybe needs are a little bit different. And so if that is the case, again, reach out to them. This is, once you're funded, if things change, let them know and they will work with you to see how they can accommodate things. So on to the statement of need. This is one where you are expected to go through all of the different aspects. So this is where you really want to tell a strong story of, you want to provide data, you want to make sure that you are providing a picture of what your community looks like. A strong statement of need tells the story so that even if reviewers are not part of your community, they can understand this as though they're right there. Some of the things that are included in that statement of need are things like percentage of poverty, percentage of those who are unemployed, healthcare shortage areas, lack of access to food, and many other things. So I'm going to show you a few things. So this is more of an opinion statement. And a lot of times organizations will offer information, because they do know the needs of the community. So this is saying, our organization's been in this community for over 30 years. We've seen our community members struggle to put food on the table. We see violence happening in every corner, from drugs to gunshots to streetwalkers. We know there are people who are in our community that aren't working and they're at risk of losing their homes. And we see people evicted on a regular basis, moms unable to purchase formula for their babies, kids not getting the education they need. And so we need this money to turn things around. And while that is really compelling, we also need data to support that. So it's not as though you can't include this, but this is more of an opinion statement if we don't have data to back it up. So we want to make sure we're reaching the communities that are most at need. So then I'm not going to read all of this to you, but a strong statement of need includes things that have data. So this is, telling us more about your community. As you see here, we are showing the breakdown of race and ethnicity. We're sharing things about the population. We're sharing that there are certain residents, a certain percentage of residents that are living below the poverty line, and how that's twice the rate of those in St. Louis City, and income information and all of that. So this is really telling a stronger story of what the need looks like. So it's saying a similar thing, but it's giving us the data to back it up. So that's what we're going to want to see from your organizations. In order to do that, it's important for us to be able to utilize some community resources. You do not have to be a data expert to be able to pull that information. And so there are two resources that I would like to share with you just briefly. These will also be included on the password protected site, but I just want to show you them so that you're familiar with it when you get in there. One of them is called Community Commons. This website is really wonderful because it offers the opportunity to enter a zip code. You can select different indicators and then generate a report that has data and maps and all of that. So anything you would need. Again, you don't have to be an expert at all. You can just pull this information. There's also the community health needs assessments, which are required as a part of the Affordable Care Act by all of the hospitals. And so we have included that all of the hospitals on the password protected site, but we're just going to walk through one. Again, it's just going to be kind of a scroll so you see what information is there. We're going to use St. Louis Children's Hospital. So I am going to go ahead now and share that screen with you so that we can walk through those two items that I shared with you. So this first site is Community Commons. And I typically will go over here to Maps and Data. And once you click that, it takes you to another page and you can scroll down. I generally will click on vulnerable populations because that's usually who we are wanting to focus on when we're applying for grant applications. You click View Tool. Now I'm just going to use some just imaginary stuff, and I'm not going to click a lot of things. I just want to show you guys how this works. So I'm going to enter 631003 as our zip code. So now I'm going to add data. And we can browse by topic or browse by source. And so I'm going to just choose topic. And here you'll see there's so much information under here. So we're not going to go through all of it, but we will maybe click a couple of things. And then you will be able to see how this generates a report. So I'm just going to click maybe 3 different things here. There's a wealth of information, and this pulls from all of the reputable sources like the census and the CDC and all of that. So you can rest assured that you're getting quality information. Okay, so now I'm not going to go through everything else, but I will add this to our map. So now this is added here. And what you're able to do is we're able to scroll down and we should be able to export this to a report. Generally, we can export this to a report. So we got our tools, our map layers, and then, okay, here we go. So we're gonna export PDF document. I'm gonna make sure you all can see this. Actually, let's run back there. Of course, technology acts up when you least need it to. I'm gonna go back through and enter this information because you should be able to see an actual report at the end of this. And I want you all to definitely see that because it's invaluable. It really is helpful. All right, so we're gonna keep going with this and close. And we're gonna add, again, the data here. So 3 topics: economic, subject income. All right. We're gonna add 3 more things here like before. And we'll do finance. And then we will also maybe do health. So those like health shortage areas, things like that, that we mentioned before. Okay, so we're gonna add this to the map again. And then here you'll see where it says generate quick report. So we're gonna click that. And here's the information I wanted you guys to see. So it's a map, but then there's also information on the population. So you see where there's like average household income, there's demographics that are broken down for you. So again, you don't have to be an expert. This information is here and you can pull this and include whatever you need in your application. It's gonna look different for everyone. And there are many options to select from, but I just wanted to make sure that you all saw this as an option. So a lot of people tend to find that very helpful. And so I hope that is helpful to you. This will be included in the it is included in the password protected website. I want to walk you through one more item, which is the community health needs assessment that I mentioned every hospital must report on. And this is the disparities dashboard that we are working through. So their dashboard allows for us to look at what is happening across the community that they have the opportunity to serve. So you see we're with Children's Hospital, and of course this isn't the right slide. Sorry, you guys. Hospital dash. All right, there we are. This is the right slide. So this here is the community needs assessment. This is the disparities dashboard. They do have another dashboard as well. But what I like about this is that you can see that it goes through things about like how many children have health insurance, their ages, again, breaks down race and ethnicity. It also goes through the different types of health issues that are seen by, this is for Children's Hospital, that they've seen as priority. It also has information about mortality rate. So a wealth of knowledge and information here that you can use, again, not only for this proposal, but for any proposal that you may be writing. So there's a lot of different information you can pull up. It talks about the environment. So, kids that tested, positive for lead and all of that. So there's a wealth of knowledge here and you can play around with this, but I just wanted you all to know that this exists and it exists for all of the hospitals. So we've not only covered Children's, but also other hospitals as well. So those are the 2 community resources I wanted to share. We do have a lot of different resources on the Password Protected site, but those are 2 of the primary ones I always like to share with people. So as we get into the program and project objectives, I really wanted to describe what objectives are. I didn't want to make an assumption that people knew what that was, because we want to make sure that you have the best opportunity to respond to the proposal. These are statements. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, there was a question that I thought would be good for you to answer about that. Someone asked, how would you cite data generated by these reports?
So thank you, I appreciate that. So for those reports, I would say according to Community Commons, and then you'd provide the data. And then the same with, according to the St. Louis Children's Hospital's Community Health Needs Assessment, X, Y, and Z. So just making sure you're calling those out would be perfect, because you don't need to call out every data source that they have pulled from. You just would reference those organizations. I hope that's helpful. Thank you for that. And if there's anything else, please let me know if there are other questions that I may not see. So when it comes to the program and project implementation, these objectives that are being requested are statements that describe the results that you're planning to achieve and the manner that they're going to be achieved. And so a lot of times you're going to need multiple objectives to address a single goal. It's really important to utilize what I'm sure many of you have heard of, which are SMART attributes. Those are used to make sure we're clearly defining an objective. And so I pulled that. I always have a source there. So I got that from the CDC as far as the explanation, but I also want to walk you through what does that look like. It's easy for someone to tell you what you should do, but then it's important to know what exactly that looks like. So what does SMART stand for? It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And as long as you're including that, you're going to be good to go. So this is my example. This is not a SMART objective where it says women will learn about pregnancy. That sounds good, but we're not necessarily clear about what women and how many and when. So I've given a couple of examples. These two are considered SMART objectives. 30% of pregnant moms enrolled in our program will attend at least one prenatal class by the end of their first trimester. And then 100 women who are pregnant or intend to get pregnant will attend our pregnancy education classes by December 2020. So you can see that we've put numbers to it. We've offered more context. And so the funder has an idea of what you're actually going to be doing, how many will be served, and by when. That's really important. We can't expect them to read your minds. And so we want to help you guys to be as clear as possible. And I will walk through a few more examples here just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Okay, so specific. The specific part of this has been highlighted in orange. Who are we really serving? Pregnant moms that are enrolled in the program. It's not every pregnant mom in St. Louis City. It's those who are enrolled in our program. 100% of women who are pregnant or intend to get pregnant are the ones that will attend the classes. So I'd like to walk through just the measurable part as well. 30%, that's our measurement. 100 is our measurement. So we want to make sure that we're being intentional about calling out those numbers wherever possible. Either one is fine. You don't have to use a percentage specifically. It's just, and also I always like to tell people, don't say that you're going to serve more than you really have the capacity to serve. I know that it's easy to want to impress the funders, but you don't want to get in a situation where you've committed to something and then when you're trying to implement your program, you're only able to serve 30. If you put that you're able to serve 30 and then you end up serving 100, that's wonderful, but we just want to set you up for success. So consider that as you're developing these outcomes. Attainable. This is by December 2020, and that's for one of them. So you're actually saying, hey, I can do this. This is something that's realistic for me by this time, and it's people that are in their first trimester. So when we're talking about first trimester, if you have never served pregnant moms in their first trimester, you always serve people when they're in the second or third, then that would not be an attainable goal for you. So I want to make sure that that's realistic. If you've said December 2020, obviously we're in December 2020, then that's not going to be realistic either. So you want to make sure that if it's going to take you 3 months to do this or a year, be clear about that and just make sure it's something that you realistically can achieve. I've seen where people will say, oh, we're going to get this done in 2 months, and it's just not realistic. And so they're not setting themselves up for success, but the funder is going to expect you to do that if that's what you've shared with them. So just really make sure it's something you can do. Again, if you plan for longer and you're able to do it sooner, that's great, but just make sure you're being really clear about what's going to work for your organization. So relevant. If you are talking about, again, we'll use the pregnant mom opportunity, then we're talking about serving these moms through this program, providing education, all of that. Well, if you're telling me that these moms are going to provide mentoring to youth, who participate in the after school program, that has nothing to do with what you said your organization or your program is going to offer. So while they might do that, that has nothing to do with what you are responding to in this actual proposal. And so that's something that doesn't need to be included. Make sure it's relevant, because it gets confusing as reviewers if people are all over the place and sharing every single thing they do. You probably do multiple things, but let's just focus on exactly what you are wanting to use these funds for. And then we talked about time bound. Oops, let me go back, sorry. Okay, time bound. So again, by the end of the first trimester and by what date? So just make sure that you are clear in that. So our next thing is promoting racial equity in the target population. Many of you have seen this before. Equality is not what we are working towards, because that means that we're providing the same thing for everyone, and not every person has different needs. And so if we just give everyone the same thing, we're going to miss out on meeting the needs. You know, there are some who have access to healthy foods, for example, and others who don't. So if we just say, hey, we're going to, you know, give you a gift card to go to this store. Well, if I can't get there and I don't have access to that, then that's not really helping me out. But when we look at equity, that's justice. And that's about making sure it's fair and providing people the resources and opportunities they specifically need based on their unique circumstances. This is a definition, just because not everyone defines equity the same. And so we want to make sure that we are clear. When we're talking about racial equity, it's defined as both an outcome and a process. And so when it's an outcome, that means that we're achieving racial equity when race no longer determines a person's socioeconomic outcome. So it doesn't determine, you know, like they said, zip codes can determine your health outcome, not necessarily, you know, how you're eating or your genetic makeup. Literally where you live can impact your health. And so we want to make sure that no matter where people live, they're able to thrive. And when it's a process, this is like for your programs, we're applying racial equity to that structural component, and we're making sure that people are involved meaningfully, they're at the tables, they have a voice. And when we've achieved racial equity, that means that across the board, things are fair no matter where you live, no matter where you come from. You are at all tables, from the policy level to the institutional level and everything in between. And so that's what racial equity looks like. So when you are talking about applying this to your program and how you will achieve this, that means that if you're serving people who don't have access to certain things that they need, you need to be able to speak to how you're going to make sure they access that. And that could be through different collaborations and partnerships. It could be bringing services into the community where they are able to access them, even if that's once a month, but you're now making sure that they don't have to travel somewhere that they're not able to get to access services. So that's just one example. This next slide I really was excited about, but the graphic is not as clear. We do have this on the password protected site. I wanted us to be able to go deeper than what we usually see. And so you'll be able to access this on the password protected site, and it will tell you exactly what does it look like to make sure that our programs are achieving racial equity. And I think, again, you know, it's easy to talk about it, but it's really helpful to have something that you all can utilize as you're developing your proposals that'll kind of inform your lens and help you think about how you can make sure that you promote racial equity in your program. So hopefully when you all look at this and see the different sections, you'll be able to become more comfortable, because it talks about things like informing the practice with diverse measures. It talks about increasing, you know, community voice and influence. So this will give you different ideas, you know, making decisions that really meet the requirements of the communities of color. So that's something we want to make sure we focus on. When we get to the implementation component, program implementation is extremely critical, and how you describe it is important. When we're talking about program implementation, we need to be able to speak to the actual people, the who, the how, the what that are happening. Oftentimes we're finding that sometimes when people are applying for applications, they're not necessarily explaining all of the hows. And so we need to know who is responsible for this. Do you have a program manager who is responsible for gathering data, overseeing the project, and ensuring implementation goes as it should? If there are issues identified, is that person the one who is kind of rectifying that and getting the program back on track? Are they the ones responsible for reporting? Jacqueline, did you have a question? I see you're unmuted. I want to make sure maybe not. Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Listen to you. I don't have a question.
Okay, all right. Okay, so with program implementation, we also need to understand, so who's doing what, like I mentioned, the program manager, but then there may be tutorers, if it's a tutoring program, what are they responsible for gathering? We need to understand every step of the process. And when we're talking about program implementation, the reviewers should really feel as though they're a part of your program. That's how clear this needs to be. They need to know who is involved, how things operate, when is your program happening, what supplies are utilized. Like, they really need to understand every single aspect. There should be a clear roadmap as though they are experiencing your program firsthand. If it's not that clear, then it's not clear enough. You really want to look at this. Oftentimes we have the experience, but we really need to realize that while it's in our heads, other people are not going to see that. And if you leave any room for questions, that could be a thing that keeps the proposal from getting funded. You're leaving the reviewers up to their own imagination. So you really want to look at this as though you are someone who is not a part of your program, and make sure that you explain every single detail as clearly as possible. I would even say share this with someone who's not as familiar with your program and see if they understand all of the different aspects as well. So I think with saying that, it's important that I also share with you what goes into a program. Many people might already know this, but just in case, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. And so I use this. So logic models are wonderful because they are kind of something you can really lean on to just think through every single step. Now, I'm not going to expect that you all would use this. I will show you kind of one of the templates we have that you guys will see on the password protected site and you can use to walk through. But what I love about this graphic that I actually have not seen before is that it covers everything. And so you'll see down here, there are what's called inputs. Those are things, that's your staff, that's the funding that goes into this. Any in-kind services, any partnerships and collaborations you have, food, all of that, whatever it is, this is your foundation. Without those, you have no program. But then growing up from here is growing out of that foundation are the activities. So, for instance, we have after school programs, we have tutoring, we have summer camps. So that's what, as a result of us putting funding into this and having these staff and volunteers in place, we're now able to carry out these programs. As a result of those programs being carried out, we have to also express, like, what does that look like? So we have to share, there are 20 hours of programming per week. There are, we expect that 100% of the students that are involved in our programming are going to have plans that are created, and we're going to work with the family to ensure that success. 100% of the students that are involved in our programs and have a GPA under 3.0 are going to receive tutoring. So it just talks about the different pieces that are actually going to be accomplished within your program. Then that gets us to outcomes. And it's, what is the impact that your program is going to have on the community members that you're serving? There are a lot of things here. I won't read through all of them, but they will, improve their life goals. They're going to, understand what the pathway to college and career looks like. And then they're also going to increase their sense of belonging and improve their academic performance. That's kind of the immediate. Then it's also looking forward 1 to 5 years down the road. That means they're staying in school. They may be able to earn a college degree now. They may be able to ensure that they're progressing on grade level because they receive that tutoring support. And long term, because we want to think about what's going to happen, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, they're going to be able to not only be financially sufficient, they're going to be prepared for a career. They're going to also be able to lead others out of poverty, because when we arrive, we want to make sure we're bringing others along with us. So that's the general approach there. I do want to share with you guys what a more linear document would look like, because I think that'll be helpful, because you're not going to be expected to create this. I just think this gives a good visual. And so I'm just for a second not sharing so that I can bring up this other document for you all. And it walks you through creating a logic model and what should be included in there. So this is kind of more what we were probably used to seeing. We have this here where it gives you examples again, but it also has a blank space for you to be able to put your own information in there. So we've tried to make sure we equipped you with as many tools as possible to think through every aspect of your program, so that then when you're writing your program implementation piece, you have considered everything that the reviewers will need to understand. And again, that is going to be on the password protected website. So you do not have to worry about trying to capture anything here. So the next aspect of this is best practices. So a really great program follows best practices. Oftentimes I am not seeing that programs are following best practices. And when we're thinking about the best practices, it's important to make sure that we think about looking at programs that are similar to yours. So it may not be exactly what you're focused, what your work is focused on, but it should be very similar. It should also serve a similar demographic. So that you can implement things that are going to actually fit for your program. And this is what determines, oftentimes whether a program is funded or not, is it something that's proven to work? So when funders, regardless of whether it's the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization or others, when they're looking at your proposal versus someone else's, if they have aligned with what's considered a best practice, then those programs are more likely to get funded. There's also something called promising practices. So they might not be a best practice, but they're on their way to getting there. And that's also very well respected. So the definition is a program or procedure that's been shown by research and experience to produce optimal results. And it's been established as a standard that is suitable for widespread adoption. So we want to make sure that we are aligning with things that work. A good thing about best practices is they also include the type of evaluation tools maybe you need to utilize. So you don't have to kind of recreate the wheel or figure it out for yourselves. They define the types of collaborations that have helped them be successful. And that may generate some ideas for you on how you can enhance your program within your community. There are a variety of places to look for best practices. You could simply Google it, but I like to tell people that there are a lot of federal agencies that either will share who they funded, the types of programs they funded, or they will share what they've considered best practices. So I've listed just a few here: the Department of Justice, the Office of Victims of Crimes, Department of Education, HRSA, SAMHSA, and there are so many others. But if you go there, you're going to go to a site depending on what works for your program area of focus. And make sure you look and see what some of those best practices are, and you're able to speak to that and align your work to those best practices. So they do a great job of spelling out what worked well, what didn't, and what programs need to consider. I want to make sure, are there any questions at this point? I think we're good. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next piece. But please let me know if any questions arise. Additional things to consider is that when we're writing grants, oftentimes organizations really want to operate in silo. But additional things to consider are that collaboration really is key. One funding source is not necessarily going to be enough to cover everything and meet every need. And it's really, it's something that's really respected if your organization is able to collaborate with other organizations to provide resources or services or any in-kind support. That is something that we're always looking for, because that means that these funds that the organization is providing are able to maybe stretch even further. And that's what funders want to see. They don't want to know if instead of 10 people, you're able to serve 100 because you're collaborating and you're going out, you're partnering outside of what you're partnering with organizations that provide services outside of what you traditionally provide, but you're offering what's needed for your community. That's going to present a stronger proposal. So we want to make sure that we're considering that as well. When we look at methods to evaluate your program and project effectiveness, I decided to just use graphics here because there are so many different ways we can evaluate programs. There are some traditional ones, which I've included on here, such as surveys, assessments, which can be quizzes, and all of that. But the thing is that we don't have to only use that. We can get more creative. There are some things that maybe are like more non-traditional, but they also can tell a story. You just have to be very careful with how you use them so that you are using them effectively. So you'll see here, we have videos. A lot of times people use videos to document the experience that's happening. Maybe someone's able to say, hey, at the beginning of this program, this is where I was. And now because of all of these different supports that have been provided, I've been successful. That's a method of evaluation. You know, photography is utilized, and even drawings. So we think about sometimes with youth who have experienced some mental health challenges, we'll see, especially if they're young, really young, they may be drawing a certain way or drawing certain pictures at the beginning of their, you know, their journey through therapy, for instance. But towards the end of it, they have pictures that show that they've really gone through a change. And so, you know, you can also use songs, you can use poetry, anything that tells the story, but it really needs to talk about where I started from and where I've ended. You can also use things like sign-in sheets. People underestimate sign-in sheets. Like you can use this in an Excel spreadsheet and be able to say, are we reaching our target population? Well, you can set it up however you want, where it's got zip codes, where it's got age groups, where it's got, you know, it's asking about their needs and have these been met. You can utilize that as a document that says we are reaching who we said we were going to reach, and we're providing the services that they need. I also share with people sometimes a Google Calendar. It seems so basic, but if you're trying to track things like volunteer hours and what's happening when those volunteers are meeting, you know, maybe they're mentors when they're meeting with youth, you can have Saturday, you know, Tracy on Saturday, December 11th, spent 2 hours with Jackie, and these are the things they covered. And they can put that on there, and you can go back and reference that. So when you're needing to report to the funder, you've got the information there and you're able to just pull it. That's a simple way to track. And that's something that people don't often talk about, but I really believe in thinking outside of the box, because our community doesn't fit in a box and everybody's situation is not equal. Surveys are not appropriate for everything. And there's so much value in what we call qualitative data, where people are really telling the story of their experience. So one thing, and this is specific to the philanthropic organizations applications, that as they shared, the funds are to be utilized for city residents. I have included an example, and I do want to encourage you guys, please, please, please read the instructions that they've provided. They've done a phenomenal job of spelling out everything. Most funders do spell things out, but they've gone in even greater detail to make sure that it's pretty much foolproof, fail-proof. And so this is the example where there's a program that is serving 200 children from the city and county. And the estimated number of individuals served is 200, but of those 200, 125 children are from the city. And the grant is being requested to provide scholarships for 18. So even though you're serving 125 from the city, you're only asking the philanthropic organization to cover 18 scholarships. So being clear so that the funders understand exactly how their money will be used and who it will be used for is helpful. As far as other procedures, there are things like tracking of zip codes, and then also documentation that says they really are residents of St. Louis City. Those are options. And then I have on here your turn, because I'd like you guys to take a moment and just enter into the chat any other procedures that you think people could consider to make sure they're sharing with the organization how they plan to limit use of grant funds. Just 30 seconds, you know, for people to enter other procedures that could be considered. Because I think, okay, some that we use QR code for virtual events, for attendees to complete surveys, to for college impact data. Looking at what school they attend and where, if we want to limit to St. Louis City, is another response. I don't know if anyone else has anything. I think, is there anything else? I see another one. Oh, collect. Okay, that's fine, no problem. Okay, so those are good. Yeah, looking at schools they attend and where those are. I mean, if they're attending a school in the city, that's a good indicator that they live in the city. Yep, zip codes are good as well. And yeah, so those are great. And if you guys, let's see, we serve, okay, so you serve children involved in city and county courts, and so you're able to separate city residents. Oh, that's important, yep. So someone's asking what if they attend a school outside the city? Well, as long as you're able to, again, document where their place of residency, then that's fine. It doesn't matter. I mean, I know some kids may live in the city and attend schools in the county. That's not going to be a problem. You can document where they live. And, documentation of residency is things like utility statements, any other type of bills that, come, if it's, Laclede or Emron or whatever, that gives you documentation if you want to go that route. I think that answers the questions that I see here, but let me know if you guys see anything else. So just make sure you're clear on how you plan to document that so that the organization does know that you have a plan in place, because they're intentional about asking this question, because they're intentional about where the funds are utilized. So don't skip over this and be very thorough and clear. So then we can talk about budgets, fun topic. So again, I stress this just because I really want to make sure it's clear. Funding must be utilized to serve city residents. There is both an organizational and a program budget that are required. And so it's important that you explain how grant funds are going to be used in detail. And this example is straight from the instructions that have been provided. This is the level of detail that the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization is looking to have. So you can see the examples there. If you're using $600, oh, it's for 10 GED books. $1,200, we're going to pay 2 instructors at $15 an hour for 80 hours. And you don't want to just have $1,200 for 2 instructors. What does that look like? What are they going to be doing? How long are they going to be doing it for? They've given you really great examples. General information, and this is more so for just any funder, is really recognizing that each agency is going to have a different funding template. They're going to have different requirements, and it's important for you to read the fine print, because you want to make sure that it's a good fit for your organization. Though they may fund what you do, it may be, as someone asked earlier, it may be that there are organizational budget limits, and so your organization may or may not qualify. And you want to read that beforehand so you make sure you use your time wisely. But then also ensuring that, they may ask for additional information, such as a specific budget narrative that they want to go along with that. Just really make sure that you're not going off of one experience and using that information for every opportunity, because you may miss something and that could cause your organization to not get funded as well, because we're not following all of the guidelines. And so I just want to make sure I'm clear on organizational budget versus a program budget, just because people are coming with different levels of experience. So an operating, this is really an operating budget, and it's the traditional budget. It goes off of your previous year and maybe what the targets are now for this year based on that. Any money you're bringing in, which is revenues, any expenses, so money going out, and you're really making sure that there are categories assigned to each of those. And that's what you have on a regular basis. It's going to include staff. It's going to include, overhead costs, all of that. So we want to make sure that we're clear. This is what your organization uses on a regular basis, and you should have as an operating nonprofit. When it comes to the program or project budget, it's also called an activities-based budget, because we're looking at things like there can be 3 different programs you have, and maybe one is focused on tutoring, one's focused on feeding, people who are in your community that don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. That budget's going to look at what all goes into each one of those programs, and those are going to look very different. They're going to need different staff, they're going to need different supplies, and that's where you will break that information down. And you may reassess every year and say, now we need to make some shifts here, because this is what worked or didn't work. That's where evaluation comes into play. This is what worked and didn't work, and now we're going to do something different. You may have funding for it one year and another year you don't. So those are more focused areas. And so that's something just important to remember as well. And so this is where we get to go into our breakout sessions. If all works well, then everyone who had signed up previously is going to be able to, I've already put them in breakout rooms pre-assigned. And so when we click that button, you should be able to go in your breakout room. The idea is that we're going to spend 15 minutes, not a long time, but 15 minutes together. You guys can choose one organization that's at the table, And you don't have to like think too hard about this, but just choose one of the organizations that's a part of your team and discuss your section. So each breakout room has been assigned a section of the application. That's in the title of your breakout room. And so use that to be able to walk through and see if any of what's been shared here has been helpful, if you really have a good understanding. As you apply it, you may see that there's still some questions or things that aren't clear. And so I want you all to make sure that you let me know that. So what I'll be doing is going to different breakout rooms. I know there are actually 18 of them. So I will go to different breakout rooms, but I may not make it to all of them. Mary's going to be looking and checking in breakout rooms to see if there's a need, if I'm not in there. And so then Debbie will communicate to me to go to that breakout room. And so I will try to get to each one. But if for some reason we don't get to your breakout room, what I would like you to do is have one spokesperson that shares the questions that you guys have when we get back from the breakout room. So it's only 15 minutes, but again, you're going to go through and kind of try to respond to that section. Does anyone have a question before we go to the breakout rooms? Yeah, thank you, Linda. Linda is sharing that the program budget should be used for your entire budget. And there is a section in the application to detail how the request will be directed to city residents. So read every aspect of this. And they've done a great job. I mean, I've not seen anything quite this phenomenal. So utilize what they put in place. Okay, we don't have any questions. So I'm gonna put you in breakout rooms at this point. If you, again, signed up, I'm gonna stop sharing, but if you signed up later, you will not be pre-assigned, but we will put you into a breakout room. So let's see if technology works like we're hoping. I'm gonna go ahead and open up all the rooms. You guys have all been invited to join breakout rooms. So if you would please join those now. And I'll keep an eye out for people who may not have been assigned to one. All right. I'm looking, I think everyone's in the breakout room. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go into breakout rooms now and answer any questions. Welcome back. I'm gonna wait for everyone to kind of get back in here. I jumped into some of the rooms and seemed like everybody was having some good discussion. I think we have just about everyone back now. Wonderful. So thank you guys again for being a part of this entire workshop and session. And thank you for participating in the breakout rooms. I really wanted to ensure that if there were any questions that arose or anything that needed clarification when you guys were in those rooms, that you, again, have someone who's a spokesperson from your team that would share that. So I just want to open up that door right now. If there are any questions or if there's clarification that's needed, let me know. I'm going to try to see everyone in case there's a raised hand or something. Like everybody. Okay, it looks like everyone is. Okay, it looks like there's no questions.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So one of the things that came up in our group was with the difficulty of COVID changing a lot of programming of programs, and where lots of pivoting needed to happen to kind of deal with the fact that you can't see your clients in person, etc. How do you write an application that's happened for the next sort of 12 months when we don't quite know whether we're still going to be in the restrictions of COVID or whether we'll be able to return to pre-COVID and our normal programs?
Absolutely. So I will offer some information, and then I will obviously ask any of the members from the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization to share if there's something different that they would like to see. In other applications where I've been working with grantees, I've been telling them, hey, this is our plan for COVID. And then to include, this is our plan during COVID. This is how we're going to work with them virtually or, socially distanced, things like that. And then should things change, we'll be able to shift, and this is what it'll look like. So providing both pictures is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you're, building in your budget, and please, Dion, Linda, Tracy, anyone else, Eugenia, let me know if I'm incorrect. I've told people before, like, you may include Zoom cost or something like that. But then, maybe that funding is going to need to be shifted to using that money for a space, if that's, if you're able to go back in person. So, but being clear about how those funds would be used and how that shift would occur. Please, anyone from the organization, let me know if there's a different approach you would like. Perfect.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Great question. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, perfect. I mean, this isn't the last opportunity. As Dion and Linda have said, if you have questions after this, reach out. Linda's so amazing to work with. So she makes herself very accessible and is so committed to making sure she answers any and all of your questions. I know we're nearing the end of our time together, but I wanted to share the password protected site with you. I'm not going to go through everything because there are a lot of resources on there, but I do want to at least share it with you so that you'll know kind of what to expect. Linda is going to be emailing everyone who registered, and she's going to include this information. So you'll be able to access this soon after the workshop. And again, this is intended to help you not only for this opportunity, but for other ones that you may have as well. So let me do a new share so that I can go back to where that is. All right. So this is the password protected site that Mary created. She's really awesome. I probably should go back out so I can show you guys how it is to sign in. Yeah, what do we do? SLPO. Oh, there we go. SLPOcapacitybuilding.org is what the name is. And so when we go to that site, well, I guess since I'm already signed in, sorry, you guys, it won't let me sign in again. But when you get there, you're going to have a little square that wants you to sign in. That password will be shared with you in the email. But for the purposes of this, I want to share just a little bit about what's under each tab. So we have this tools and resources tab, and you'll find evaluation tools, different tips, information on writing SMART objectives, messaging for the evaluation, really, making sure your evaluation is culturally competent, even though we don't always use that term anymore, it's still relevant to make sure that whoever we're serving, it fits for that community. Financial tools, so this is just a budget checklist, and then developing goals and measurable objectives, and there's logic, there's a lot of different stuff here, as you can see. And then all of the different reports from the hospitals, as I shared. There's also another tab called templates. And so under there, also I should have shown you on the homepage, but I'll go back to that. But templates, we have the, I think that, oh, you know what? I think that didn't update, but we're gonna update that right after this. This will have your, the actual application. And actually, let me go to the homepage so I can show you what that looks like, because we've tried to make it as easy as possible. So that'll have the actual, so here we have at the bottom, the actual application and the instructions, that's blank. We also have an application that we've completed, and it's just a mixture of different responses, but we've done that because we want to make sure that you are able to utilize that as kind of a guide. So when you go in there, you'll see the application that has been completed with, again, not like any specific program, just gives you ideas of answers that might help guide your work. There are helpful links. So these are just if you need to go outside and research anything else, this is here. And then we also have some videos. So sometimes, instead of reading a whole bunch of stuff, it's helpful to just have a video. And so we've got information on racial equity, which is, we talked about microaggressions, look that up. Try to find something that were kind of fun and not too boring or anything, but give you a good level of insight to things like racial equity lens. What does that look like? There are evaluation videos. There are logic model videos. There's theory of change, which is a big thing that people are, funders are requiring now. It walks you through what that looks like, and even developing surveys. Not everybody is experienced in what makes a good survey. And so we want to make sure you have these tools in case, you need to be able to, you want to make sure you're getting out of it what you're intending to. And so that's one thing we want to make sure of, because sometimes if we ask questions in the wrong way, we're not going to get everything we need. So there's just a lot, there's financial management videos and all of that. So as I shared, it's a lot of information on here, but my hope is that this will be beneficial to you. If you have any challenges with the site, please connect with Linda. And then if she can answer the questions, she will. And if she needs me to answer anything, she'll reach out to me. But we want to make sure it's as smooth as possible. So we want to keep you guys connected to the organization. Are there any questions about the password protected site? Nothing? Let's see, I'm gonna check the chat. I see something in the chat, just make sure. Oh, good. Oh, thank you guys. Okay, so then with that, we're gonna go to the next slide. Oh, go ahead.
Thing. So
yeah.
in case we forget, as you all know, the Center 25 will also have 2 additional workshops, one in January and one in March. The financial management workshop will be on Wednesday, January 13th. And the program evaluation workshop will be on Wednesday, March 10th. I would include that in the email that's out to you guys. And again, so we're going to also have registration information fairly soon, probably within the next couple of weeks, for the financial management workshop.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Linda. We're super excited because that's where we're going to go deeper. We didn't go as deep when it came to things like the financial component, because we have an expert who's going to go deeper on January 13th and be able to, he's got over 30 years of experience and he'll be able to provide a lot of insight.
Okay, let me go to a couple of questions here. I see, so let me try to type in real quick. So yes, the passport will be sent to you in the email. It's very simple, and I'll put that in the email. How long you will have access to the website, the board will be discussing that. They're going to determine how long to keep the website going. So right now, you can have access to it at least through, next workshop is in March. So at least probably through March, April. But again, the board will be deciding how long they want to continue that particular website moving forward. And a lot of that's going to depend upon usage.
And definitely we want feedback, you know, so as you're going through it, if you feel like, you know, let Linda know like what's working for you, what's not, because they've been gracious enough to, you know, cover this. And so we want to make sure that what they are sponsoring is really what the community is needing. I am including a link to the survey in here for now if you want to go ahead and get started. But again, Linda's going to be sending that out in her email. I'm really thankful for that. Please give us feedback. We want to know what you liked, what didn't work. That survey is also designed to ensure that the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization knows what you are looking for and what most of the needs are for our community as far as it relates to capacity building. We did not include anything about evaluation. We did not include financial management. We did not include grant writing, simply because we already were covering that. So we asked about things that we have not covered. So with that, I want to make sure that I turn this over to Dion to close us out. And I'm just honored again that you all selected Mosaic Beginnings. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Monique, and thank you to your team. This has been wonderful. I hope that everyone got out of it something that will be beneficial to you and your work, not just for a grant that a proposal that you may submit to the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization, but in your work generally and specifically with other grants that you and funding that you intend to go after, and also in just building your organization. And some of these tools that Monique has shared are really just beneficial to an organization as you just build your capacity overall. And as someone who runs a nonprofit organization and was a former grantee of the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization, I really appreciate what has been shared today, and I hope that you all really got something out of it. So I want to say thank you for attending, and we hope to see you in January at the financial workshop as well. One other thing, Linda mentioned the upcoming workshops, but the other thing that we wanted to mention too is that we will be having a new website coming out soon, which is the Philanthropic Organization website. And there will be a link, I believe, to the, will there be a link to the Password Protector site on that site? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this will be in the next week or two where we'll have a new website out. The application will still be on the website. The grant application will still be on the new website as well. All right, so thank you so much for your time and attentiveness and all of your questions. Remember, please, if you have more questions, reach out to us. Thank you again.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Be well.
Happy holidays.